to Wholesale Hotline, where we cover everything to do with wholesale real estate. I'm Jamil Damji.
I'm Brent Daniels.
And I am Pace Morby.
And together we cover the most important parts of wholesale real estate.
Lead generation.
Conversion of sellers into contracts.
And dispositions. Guys, remember when you're watching this show, do us a favor and squad up in the comments.
Make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the YouTube channels and in the Facebook group Wholesale Hotline.
Most important, we want to know we're doing a great job for you and helping you build your business. So go give us a review on iTunes and or Spotify.
So squad up and enjoy the show!
Welcome to Wholesale Hotline number 211. And I am telling you guys this. If you have any friends, any family, any loved ones, any peers that wholesale real estate, they have to watch this episode in 2024 because times are a-changing. All right. This is going to be absolutely critical that everybody understands what the new rules are, what the new regulations are, state by state by state. And right there, right in front of Jamil, in his hot hands, right there is an incredible report by Jerry Norton that you can get, you can download, you can go through all the notes. It's absolutely incredible. Jerry, thank you for putting that together. But we need to break down what is going on with wholesaling real estate regulations around the country, because this is critical. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Isn't that absolutely incredible what he put together?
It is. Thank you, Jerry, for doing this. And
welcome.
We've seen regulations come over the last, since 2018, we've been seeing things happening. 2019, this stuff started getting passed. The state of Illinois being, one of the first. But quite recently, we've seen that new regulations have been passed. And in fact, how many in the last couple weeks, Jerry?
Well, if you count bills, 7. There's been 7 either laws or bills in the past month. So it's a tsunami right now.
So what's going on, Jerry? Why are these all clumping together? Is this a bunch of states getting together and a meeting of the minds, and they're all saying, hey, this is how we want to be able to regulate this? Or what is happening?
It's interesting because if you follow the regulations that have passed in order, you kind of see some trends happen, and then you see something a little bit different. But each one of these, it's getting progressively more and more regulation. So like these last couple that have been introduced, some of them are pretty heavy. It's not just licensing. It's not just marketing contracts. There's disclosure. There's registrations. It's getting a little bit aggressive from these regulators on how they're handling wholesaling. So it's, yeah.
It seems as if they're figuring out the loopholes as one state does one. They add a closure to the loophole from the previous one, and it continues to compound is what I'm learning.
I think that's part of it. Yeah. And really what's happened is there's been 2 camps. One camp, which is several states like Nebraska, Oklahoma, Kentucky, and they took the stance that wholesaling's fine. It's the marketing of a contract that we consider brokering, and therefore you need a real estate license. Okay. So that's sort of not too bad to work around. Okay. You can't publicly market a contract without a license. So if I send them my private email list, or maybe if I'm, on investor lift or something, that's not really considered publicly marketing. Or, okay, so if they have an issue with that, maybe we double close, right? Well, then there's been another camp, and that is the act of wholesaling, just the assignment of contract. Or now what they're doing is they're not even saying dealing with contracts. Now they're saying equitable interest, which is very interesting that they're focusing on equitable interest, because that sort of closes some loopholes if we're talking about equitable interest. And it's very important everybody understands what that means. But you've got like Virginia, you've got Illinois, and you've got some of these newer states that are passing regulation. And what they're saying is
Iowa, Oregon, Indiana.
They're saying any and all wholesaling, anything dealing with equitable interest for compensation is considered brokering, and we want you licensed. And then on top of that, so pretty much everybody wants licensing, which is really ironic because a real estate license has nothing to do with wholesaling. So making wholesalers get a license, it doesn't, all that accomplishes is it brings it underneath the umbrella of NAR and the, the state commission boards and brokering. And so maybe it's a money grab, but it certainly doesn't make sense to tell a wholesaler, we want you to have a real estate license, when the licensing of regular real estate doesn't really impact wholesaling so much. So, but that's been they all want that. They all want licensing. Every single one of them wants licensing. And now we're seeing some additional things like registration and disclosure has been the big one. Like the last couple of states all want disclosure. And the disclosure is kind of odd because I guess it's not odd, but the way it's written is you have to disclose up front before entering into a contract. And then what they're doing now is they're listing out like a whole list of things that you have to disclose to a seller before you enter into contract, which is kind of going to, we're going to have to make some adjustments here because it's kind of going to kill your sale when you're having to disclose all this stuff about wholesaling your contract. So, we'll see kind of where this goes.
Do you have to give all that information if you're a licensed agent still?
Yeah, so great question. So one of the states said, I think it was, let me double check real quick if it was Iowa or Oregon, but they said you don't have to register. It's Iowa. Iowa says, let me just double check. I want to make sure because they both have that. Oregon says
you have to get into a wholesale registration in Oregon. Yep.
Yeah, so you don't have to register in Oregon if you're licensed, but you still have to disclose no matter what in Oregon. So you always have to, and what do you have to disclose? It says, they list it out. They say you have to disclose that you're a wholesaler, that you only have equitable interest. This is funny, that you're not a real estate professional and therefore might not be permitted to engage in real estate activity. And you're not a licensed appraiser and you might not be permitted to give opinion of value. So apparently you have to be a real estate professional and an appraiser to know how to value or even engage in real estate now, according to Oregon. And you have to tell your cash buyer that you may not be able to convey title because you don't actually own the property. And what's crazy is like Iowa, they have the same thing, a very similar disclosure. And Iowa says the seller can back out all the way till closing if you don't properly disclose. So your contract's null and void if you don't do this right in Iowa.
Okay, here's a question. Let's say, equitable interest actually could be argued in a double close transaction, right? You could say, hey, I'm marketing, because that's what you're really doing. You're on your A to B transaction. So some people are asking, hey, is this direct to seller or direct agent? It's the same, guys, the same thing. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So I called an attorney in Nebraska because Nebraska's law has been out since 2022. So they've been out a couple of years. And I asked him, I said, when they talk about equitable interest, is that a double closing? And he told me, he said, yes, because here's why. Your BC contract in a double closing is equitable interest. You don't actually have legal title until you close.
So this is my question. My question is, what if you market only after you close escrow, or only go to one buyer, right? So for example, right, I go to, I personally call this bird dogging, where you're only working for one buyer. You don't have a buyer's list. You just go, look, I'm looking for deals for like 2 or 3 buyers. That buyer, a couple of ways around this. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. You tell me what your thoughts are. Number one, I could just go to a buyer. I'm not marketing it to him. It's not openly anywhere. There's no way for them to find out. And I go, hey, Tom, I've got a deal. I'm about to get under contract. I'd like to wholesale it to you. Okay, we're good to go. And you're communicating privately to that buyer, not outwardly marketing on the MLS or an email list or your website or anything like that. Would that go around that law, or do they consider text messaging a form of marketing?
So technically, bird dogging is illegal in and of itself, all by itself, without any of this. Bird dogging is illegal because you're getting compensated for assisting in the sale or purchase of real estate. That's brokering. So bird dogging in and of itself is brokering because you cannot get compensated in a transaction without a real estate license. The way we get around it in wholesaling is we have equitable interest, and we're selling our equitable interest, not receiving compensation for brokering. Well, I mean, that's been protected in contract law as part of the Constitution since the country was founded. What's happening now is everyone's undoing equitable interest and saying, no, that's considered brokering. So bird dogging, no, you can't bird dog. Technically, you can't, even though everyone does it all the time. Here's the other thing to think about, everyone needs to understand, is these laws are brand new. And so we're not really seeing much enforcement. Like I haven't really heard of anybody enforcing Illinois or some of these other states that have been around.
Even Atlanta, the commercial harassment in Atlanta, I've heard of nobody being, anybody.
We have had Sean St. Clair, our attorney here, contract attorney here. I know Brent uses him. He's been on the show a bunch of times. He's my attorney for 5 different states. He has actually gone and represented a wholesaler who did not disclose in his contract to a seller that he was a wholesaler. He assigned it to a fix and flipper. The fix and flipper sold it to a family. Somebody, an attorney, is now going after these transactions, and he's finding where there was a wholesaler or a fix and flipper involved. He's calling the title company, or he's calling the owners, or he's calling the fix and flipper, and he's finding out, where did you buy this deal? And then he reverses and he calls the homeowner and he says, hey, were you ever disclosed that this home was going to be sold and flipped and this, that, and the other? And Sean St. Clair was representing a wholesaler that lost. And what they ended up having to do is the title company that closed the transaction had to compensate the homeowner, because the title company should not have closed on the transaction, because the purchase contract did not state that the wholesaler was actually wholesaling the property.
What state was this in, Pace?
Arizona.
Yeah, that law in Arizona has been there for a minute now.
A couple years now. So, but here's the thing. So it's going to take things like that where we start to establish case law, because here's the thing. Everyone's telling me, hey, Jerry, this is totally unconstitutional. That doesn't mean we can ignore it. It's law. If it's passed in the law, it's passed in the law. What has to happen is case law has to be made, and then that case law has to be challenged, and then it has to climb up the ladder to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court only takes on a couple of cases a year. This would have to be something big enough that they take on, and then it all gets reversed. So yeah, it's true that this all should be protected in contract law, the way we wholesale, but it doesn't mean that this isn't all happening. It doesn't mean they can't still fine you. I got fined in Idaho $4,000 for what they considered a non-commissioned transaction. So, like, these things are going to start to happen. I think we're going to start to see more enforcement because it's becoming more popular between the states. And I think we're going to see a snowball here. And the bigger issue, I think this is the part that everybody needs to understand, because everybody's like, oh, well, form an LLC and sell your LLC or double close or whatever. Yeah, maybe. I mean, case law will tell us if those things will actually stand, because equitable interest is whenever you're transacting where you don't actually have legal title yet. So that would be an LLC, because you have equitable interest. You're selling an LLC that's got a contract on a property. Yep. Novations are equitable interest technically, because you don't own the property yet. So would double closing, so would assignments. The only thing that would not be that we consider wholesaling would be
close on it.
Close on it. You take title, you don't market it, and then you resell it. Now, when you resell it, you don't have equitable interest, you have legal title. Yeah. So we just call that buying and selling real estate, right?
Or wholesale almost.
Wholesaling, right? Like wholesaling would be. So, but how is this going to be interpreted? How is it going to be enforced? And some of these fines are pretty big. Like Iowa, I think it is. It's like 10%. It's 10,000 or 10% of the sale price. So a $250,000 wholesale could be $25,000 fine if you don't properly disclose.
In Oregon, you can get a year in jail.
A year in jail?
A year in jail in Oregon, and it's $6,250 fine in Oregon.
Dang.
Yeah, so, I mean, if they enforce this stuff, then it could get kind of ugly. But here's the bigger issue that I see is there's a real push especially led by NAR, the media, a lot of the real estate boards, some of these anti-wholesaling groups, and it's that wholesaling is predatory. And this is where it's becoming pervasive. It's really damaging to our industry. And this is the bigger problem, because if we keep getting demonized as doing harm to sellers, then it's just easy to just keep passing more regulation. It's easier to have a stance on it. Everyone gets behind it if they think, grandma's getting kicked out of her house. I mean, if you look at NAR said when they passed the Philadelphia, which they led that entire thing in Philadelphia, they said, we need legislation to protect homeowners from the targeted, aggressive, and predatory tactics and misleading practices employed to siphon them of valuable assets, their homes. Atlanta called it equity theft, is what they called it. Oregon calls it, Oregon just now, they did a big push with the Oregon Association of Realtors. And they said wholesalers deploy predatory tactics, engage in misrepresentation, or do not make consumers fully aware of what it means to enter into a wholesaling agreement. So, it's pretty aggressive language. And what I see is I see a couple things happen. NAR introduces this idea that is predatory. They run some news articles. They find a grandma who got ripped off by a wholesaler. They run some local news. NAR has some buddies that are in legislation. Almost all these guys do real estate. It's funny. Every single one of these bill sponsors, almost all of them, they have like a real estate license, or they own a brokerage or something, or they're investors. and then you see a bill introduced. Then you see it crammed down our throats. Like these new ones, these were fast, like in a month. So it got introduced, passed the House, the Senate, and signed by the governor in a month or so. Some of these, like no one didn't even know about them. Do
you think it's a domino effect from the settlement that NAR just had to enter, knowing that there may be decreases in fees, maybe looking around to say, how do we bring more fees? How do we get more people to get licensed? Is there anything that could be?
I think that there's a right hand and a left hand that's operating right now. And I think that there's a whole organization that's focusing on that thing. And I think that there's a whole group of people focusing on the wholesaler thing. I don't know. I don't think they're correlated at all. I don't think anybody's actually that intelligent on this planet to actually understand.
Yeah. If you look at some of this stuff is pretty ridiculous, but I think to go along with that, I think what's happened is wholesaling, like when I started 20 years ago, it was like an obscure thing. No one really knew what it was. Now it's a full-blown industry. And so they're seeing the money for sure. I mean, wholesaling without a doubt is a multi-billion-dollar industry. I mean, I talked to Rob Wensley with InvestorLift. Just on InvestorLift, they transact over $1 billion a year. And he thinks they're maybe 10% of all transactions or something really small. So, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so I think there's a money grab going there. Like, hey, we got to get all these wholesalers running through brokerages and paying state fees and all the things. So maybe it's some of that, it's just kind of interesting to see what's going on. Definitely the negative publicity. Like if anybody in our industry is acting poorly and that gets out, that hits the news, or they make a story out of it. Like Homevestors and all that went down. I mean, that was horrible for our industry, the way that they ran all that. And so, we definitely have a responsibility to raise the bar and provide better service, better disclosure, not be bouncing contracts like some wholesalers do. All of that, we definitely need to, I think, improve the integrity of the industry because it's just going to get worse. And all they need is one bad example to run with, and then they have an excuse to pass all this legislation.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been involved in transactions where we picked up a wholesaler's bad deal that they screwed up on, and we come in and swoop in and save Grandma Smith because a wholesaler failed to do whatever. I mean, I have a whole bunch of stories. We all do. All four of us have stories where, one of my students will call me and go, hey, actually, I'll tell you a really good story. And I actually agree with regulations and wholesaling. I think this is going to tee up Jerry to talk about some of the stuff he wants to talk about. I agree that I think sometimes our YouTube channels are part of the problem. And here's why, is because Jerry has 5,000 YouTube videos. I have 4,000 YouTube videos. Brent and Jamil have thousands of YouTube videos. And so what happens is the lazy man, sorry, I'm one of those people too. When I want to learn something, I'll go on YouTube, but I watch things out of order and I don't watch the whole entire thing to understand the full context. And so I'll go and attempt to do the thing and I screw it up. So I think there's a lot of wholesalers that will go and watch one YouTube video, Jerry calling a seller, and they're sending out a contract to Grandma Smith, right? And locking up contracts, not knowing how to sell it off into the market. They cancel, right? Remember I talked to the Attorney General of California, and we brought them in on October 13th. We did this really cool Zoom with like 3,000 people. And the Attorney General calls me up and he goes, we have all these agents complaining about there's something going on in California, scammers going on in California. I go, what are they doing? He says, we don't know why they're doing this, but they're just locking up real estate agents and sellers and contracts, and then they're just ghosting them. It's happening by the hundreds, and we think it's some scam artist, Russian thing overseas. They're doing something nefarious, and we don't understand. I'm like, oh no, those are just wholesalers that don't know how to sell their contracts. Mm-hmm. That's what that is. And these wholesalers are wreaking havoc, whether it's our YouTube channel or it's other YouTube channels. There's a lot of people that learn just this much about wholesale, and then they jump into the market, which is ironically, I would argue I would want them to do, because I want them to go out and make mistakes in order to learn from their mistakes. But the sad thing is they're not squatting up with people. They're not finding a good buyer. They're not finding buyers before they're calling sellers. So there's all those types of things. And we've all been involved in transactions. One 30-second story. 3 years ago, I'm on a Zoom. One of my students, Ted, says, hey, I've got a seller. Her name's Nancy. And will you call her? And I go, yeah, what's going on? He says, I just picked up this lead and she's in a really bad situation. There's a wholesaler that basically ghosted her, and she was supposed to close escrow 3 days ago on her house. She was waiting for the money. She had already shipped all of her stuff over to Arizona. She's in North Carolina. She's going to go move in with her daughter, and she's waiting for the close of escrow so she can get the money to actually get over to Arizona and live with her daughter. And the wholesaler's not communicating. I go, no problem. I get on the phone with the lady. It's 11 o'clock at night, her time. And I hear her rustling around on the phone call. I'm like, what's going on? She says, I'm sleeping in a sleeping bag because I packed up all my stuff, and all my stuff is in a moving truck going across the country. And I'm sleeping in this house. I've already turned the utilities off. We were supposed to close escrow 3 days ago, and I can't get a hold of the buyer. And I'm like, hey, Nancy, I hate to tell you, there's no buyer. That guy bought your property for what you owed on it. There's no equity in it. There's no way for him to make any money. Anyway, Jamil and I actually went and visited that property. I bought it subject to, I got the lady $5,000. It's still in my portfolio. And I can't tell you how many times I've had to do this. I'm sure Jerry's had to do it. Brent's had to do it. Jamil's had to do it. So the National Association of Realtors actually has a valid point, in my opinion, against these wholesalers. The problem is nobody's talking about the thousands and not thousands, hundreds of thousands of transactions that we do as wholesalers that actually save a seller where an agent could not perform, could not help them out. I mean, you look at Friday, I looked at the expired listings nationwide. 5,700 expired listings happened on Friday alone nationwide. So 5,700 agents failed to sell homeowners' houses. And I look at that and I'm like, how is that not nefarious? You're taking a listing and trying to sell their house for 6 months, but you're not actually educating the seller on what the house is actually worth. You probably just took the listing to get a commission. There's a lot of nefarious, like shady things that go on with agents as well. So what is the solution, Jerry? What is the right way and the wrong way to go about going forward from today?
Well, I mean, I think everybody's I think we have a responsibility. I feel a responsibility to bring awareness, bring awareness to not just these laws that are being passed and some of these bills. Until it's passed into law, we all can reach out to the sponsors of these bills. They're really easy to find and say, look, I don't think you guys have this right. I don't think this is okay. I don't like this bill. I mean, we have to have that's our right to have a voice. So we need to have a voice with some of this legislation before it passes. That's one, and be aware of it. We should
try and get one of these people on the show. Like, how do we get a hold of these people and actually get one of them on Wholesale Hotline and interview them and go, where did this come from? What's the things? Do you guys not see the other side of the thing?
Yeah, I think so. But the problem is, and I think this is where we've all had this idea, we've started the process, but we're not really unified as a body, as an industry. So I think there's a lot that could be done there if we can form an association. We've got it off the ground. I haven't done much with it. We haven't done much with it. It tends to get like a backseat to other priorities. But I think it needs to come to the front and center because, I mean, look at this, 7 laws or bills in the last month. And there's more in the works because how could there not be other states that are also exploring this? And some of this is really, really bad. Like if you look at South Carolina, they passed 2 things in their bill and it's not passed yet. It passed. It's still got to go through the Senate. And then once it goes through the Senate, this is what I've experienced is it gets introduced, then it has to pass the House and the Senate. Almost every single time a bill gets through the House and the Senate and it goes to the governor to sign, it goes through. Like it's a done deal then. It's just on his desk until he signs it whenever. But that's South Carolina. South Carolina might actually go through the way it's written. And the way it's written is it says you have to have a real estate license to wholesale, and you're not allowed in any way whatsoever to engage in wholesaling if you're licensed. So it's like a contradiction. And that's the way it's written. It's written, you have to have a license, and if you have your license, you can't wholesale at all. I mean, like, who wrote this? What is this supposed to do? What is this accomplishing? And then you look at Indiana. Now, Indiana did pass. Indiana is law. It goes into effect July 1st. And they call that, they don't say the word wholesaling once in the whole law, in that whole bill. They call us unlicensed real estate solicitors. That's how we're referred to. unlicensed real estate solicitors. And what they said is you have to disclose that you're an unlicensed real estate solicitor, not just to the seller and a buyer. You have to do it in all advertising, all print or media advertising. You have to disclose that you are not a real estate professional. That's how it's worded. You are not a licensed real estate professional. And it also says in there that if you're not the buyer that's going to take title, you have to disclose upfront to the seller who the buyer is going to be that does take title. Well, do they not understand how wholesaling works? We don't know the buyer most of the time. So how do we disclose who the end buyer is to a seller at the time of contract? Yeah. Like, it just shows how ignorant they are, that they don't understand our industry whatsoever. And almost all of them are really poorly written. Like they don't understand it. They like the way they write it is incorrect, or it's contradictory, or it doesn't make any sense to how we do our business. And yet the stuff's getting passed in the law.
I feel like this is tilting everything towards big institutional buyers.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, if I'm honest with where I think I'm going to be in a couple of years with my wholesale operation, I'm already working on it. Like, I'm going to get well capitalized, and I'm going to take everything down. I'm going to eliminate a dispo department, and I'm just going to trash out, clean, and relist on the MLS.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do
that gets around every single law, right? Does that get around every law?
Every single one of them.
Yeah.
It's open door.
I mean, what are they going to do, Pace? They're not going to prevent us from buying houses and selling them.
You can do that all day. That's not anybody's issue. You can buy it.
But what they're attacking is equitable interest.
Yeah, and the marketing of the contract prior to closing. Yeah. Right? It's the idea that you don't have legal title to actually market, right? And so and if you don't have legal title, you're brokering.
Right.
Right.
Which,
so the first
at some level, it
unless
makes
you have
sense.
a license.
Yeah, unless you have a license.
But you can have equitable interest and market it if you have a license. Is that right, Jerry?
Yeah, if you have a real estate license, you're okay to participate in wholesaling, sometimes disclosure now, and you can, because now you're protected under brokering. But here's the problem with this is, okay, I have a real estate license. I've had it for almost 20 years. I have my associate broker's license. I'm with Real right now. When I joined Real, they made me sign a waiver that they have no liability whatsoever for me wholesaling.
Right.
Okay, so let me get this straight. The brokers don't want me because I'm a wholesaler, and they don't understand me, and they don't want the liability. The state's mandating that I have a license and I'm under a broker. Like, we're displaced. Like, where do we belong here in the world? What do you guys want us to do? You want us to get licensed, but brokers don't want us underneath them. And if they did want us under them, do we share in our assignments with splits to the broker? Right. And do the brokers even have wholesaling documents? Do they understand? Like, they don't even know how to service us if you're a licensed wholesaler under a broker. So you see what I mean? Like,
I do.
Where in the world do we fit right now as wholesalers? We're a multi-billion-dollar industry, and we're displaced because nobody knows what to do with us.
Okay, so Jerry, here's a question, and I want to go deeper on that, and like the wholesale association. I want to go deeper on that, but here's a question. Let's say that I go to you, Jerry, and you're my buyer. And I go, hey, Jerry, I'm going to go out and I'm going to market on behalf of your LLC. So when I'm going and meeting with a homeowner, I'm going to be your acquisition department, basically. And my commission for working for you is actually going to be sizable, right? I'm not going to work for, I'm not going to be an actual acquisition person where you pay them 15, 20%. I actually want to come work for you, Jerry, as your bird dog, right? Essentially. I contract with the homeowner in your LLC's name, not in my LLC's name. And you pay me out of escrow, or you even pay me through escrow, whatever you decide to do as part of my compensation for working for your company. Could I not do something like that? And that would get around all the regulations, because now the buyer is actually closing on the deal. There's no assignment of interest. I'm actually representing the buyer themselves.
In Arizona, you need a license to do that, Pace, because even negotiating price on behalf of an entity that you work for requires a real estate license, which is why everybody at Keegley is licensed.
At the real estate brokerage, if there's a call in from a sign, the admins can't answer any questions about the property.
Right.
They literally have to put them on the phone with somebody that has a license. So, I mean, negotiate. Yeah. I mean, that's just general information that you could get off of Zillow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, I mean, it looks like, I mean, we've been talking about this for years, Jerry. I mean, it looks like it's getting to the point where, you know, it's going to snowball into where you have to get a license to wholesale. Or you or you close and sell it.
Yeah. Or you're going to need to be really mindful of the laws because look, Arizona has already done its thing.
Yeah. You disclose.
Right. Arizona says disclosure. So you have to, before entering into a contract, understand the laws in your state and know how to operate before you start doing bonehead stuff, because you got to understand the rules of the game before you play.
Jerry, will you put in your, the link to your download here, the free report? It's awesome.
I just put it in. It's in the side chat. It's awesome.
A big one. Make sure that you download it so that you understand. And listen, how many states is it now, Jerry? 10? 9?
Yeah, 11? I mean, Connecticut and Wisconsin both introduced new bills this month. I haven't really got to dig into those ones yet. They're just introduced, so they haven't passed House or Senate yet. But that just this month in March, they introduced 2 more in those 2 states. We know Texas is heavily looking at it. We know Missouri and Kansas are. So I don't know. I kind of feel like it's just coming, and they're all fairly consistent with the licensing thing, but then some of these other things are getting a lot more strict, like registering and disclosures and stuff. I mean, the Indiana one's really out there because now if you do anything, it's radio, TV, direct mail, you run any kind of an ad, you have to put in there that you are not a licensed real estate professional. Has to be in writing, any type of advertising as of effective July 1st this year in Indiana.
Jerry, what state was it that I saw that you can't even like have a business partner that's licensed and you're not licensed, or have an agent on your team that's licensed and you're not licensed? You literally, as the owner of the LLC that's on the purchase agreement, have to be licensed. What state was that?
I think that's South Carolina that did that. They wrote it in a way to which, like, even your acquisitions people, like anybody.
That's Virginia.
Virginia,
you can't even use transactional funding. If you are not licensed, you cannot market equitable interest at all.
Right.
So in Virginia, you have to be a real estate agent to wholesale.
So
Illinois.
Same with Illinois.
Guys, here's a question for you.
In Illinois, you can use transactional funding. You can close and then sell the same day. You can do pass through. You can, all of that's okay in Illinois. In Virginia, no.
Really?
You have to be a licensed real estate agent. Hands down.
Why wouldn't I know the wholesale group? I'm sorry, I'm going to really offend some people when I say this. I've been a wholesaler for a long time, so I'm in this group. The wholesale group is typically, I don't want to have authority over me type of person. They choose to go away from being a real estate agent because they're like, I hate real estate agents. I don't like going that route. Also, wholesalers are notoriously lazy human beings, and they are looking for the path of least resistance to do just about anything. I'm not saying that about everybody, but a lot of the people that I meet are like, how can I do the least amount possible to make the most amount of money possible? And maybe that's just a human being thing. But we all know when you meet a real estate agent, you don't know they're a real estate agent because they haven't told you, but you know they're a real estate agent by the way they walk, the way they talk, the way they dress, the way they do everything. It's a demographic of people. Wholesalers are also a demographic of people. So I look at wholesalers and I'm like, is the biggest issue here that they just don't want to have authority over them, and that's why we just don't get licensed? Or is there a different reason why we just don't get licensed?
I think there's a bigger question you're asking, Pace, which is, I did a survey on my YouTube channel, which was how many people are wholesaling in their backyard, like a local backyard model, or are virtual? And it was overwhelmingly virtual. Like almost 80% that took the survey said I wholesale virtually. okay, well, are you a one market virtual, meaning you live in Las Vegas and you wholesale in Oklahoma City? Or are you crossing state lines? I mean, since COVID now, there are no state lines really. I mean, everything can be done virtually. But now I got to be really careful where I'm wholesaling across state lines, because now what I got to do, I got to figure out all these different things, and I can't. And licensing's by state, and this is something everybody has to understand. All of these laws are subject to the state the property is located. Real estate is governed at the state level. So it doesn't matter where you live, it matters where you transact. So if I want to if right now I want to go into Virginia and transact, I got to have a license. So this really changes the virtual wholesale model. It throws it upside down if you're a multi-market virtual wholesaler.
Well, I also think that a lot of people that are interested in wholesaling, I would love to see a survey of how many people after school have had to pass a test for something.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest barrier for being an agent, is people don't want to study to pass a test.
Yeah,
if we're being honest.
Well,
because I know people that have taken that test 7, 8, 9 times. I'm not a test taker. I'm not a good test taker. It's almost like a paralyzing fear for a lot of people to go in, have to study, take a test, and now you got to go through all these other things, to code of ethics and all these other things that you have to do.
And on the flip side, just because you passed a test doesn't mean you're a professional. I mean, you know how many licensed agents are the farthest thing from a professional I've ever seen in my life?
100%. Dude, they don't even get taught how to comp property in real estate licensing school. How are they being called a real estate professional?
Passing a test does not define that you're a professional, but that's how they're looking at this.
Yeah, well, it's a tracking device. One, you have to go through the code of ethics, and that's a realtor thing. That's not a state thing. That's a realtor thing. But to get access to an MLS, and for the most part, to be able to hang your license at a brokerage, you have to be a part of the association.
Yeah, I think what we're going to need to see here is we're going to also need to see a nationwide brokerage that services wholesalers, because if all the states end up going licensing, and none of the brokerages out there want to take on wholesalers, maybe somebody will step up and do that and be like, hey, I specialize in wholesalers. Come under us.
They want you to, Jerry. they want us all to start a brokerage.
But I sat down with Real's leadership team and I said, do you guys realize the opportunity you have right now? You're a fairly young company. Why don't you create, and I'll help you do it. Why don't you create all this stuff for wholesalers and then attract licensed wholesalers? They're all getting their licenses now because they have to. And they're like, nope, we want you to sign this thing that says we want nothing to do with wholesaling. It's just they don't understand it because they're not wholesalers and they don't want to take the time. EXP, same thing. Now, EXP is starting to change their tune. They're starting to consider and look at maybe some wholesaler-friendly type of ideas here. But, I mean, you can't make us get a license and then we sign up with a broker and the broker doesn't want us. And none of them want us.
The other piece is that, wholesaling has an allure to it that attracts somebody that doesn't want to make a big commitment before they might see some result, right? Because at the end of the day, when you become a real estate agent, you get the books, you do all the studying, you got to take the test. It's a commitment before there's any payoff. In wholesaling, you can sit down, watch a video from Jerry, watch a video from Pace, Brent, Jamil, whatever that is. You think you kind of figured it out. You can download one of our free contracts and you spend a Saturday afternoon and you try your hand at blackjack. And that's how it's being treated. And it's attracting that kind of moth to that flame, right? And that I also think is part of why it's damaging, because those people are the ones who don't know what they're doing that are creating a lot of the issues that we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
And so
it's funny you say that, Jamil. Like I've had now, because I've been doing some content around this, and I get these comments that are like, man, I just started 2 months ago. I'm out. Goodbye. I'm out. I can't do this. I'm out. And to me, it's like, you're letting one little bump in the road, a little obstacle stop you from doing this business that you would have never made it anyway. You have no business being here. You need to go. Because if you can't survive changes in the market or changes in legislation or whatever, then you have no business being here in the first place. So I do think we're going to see definitely a lot. I call it fly-by nights. A lot of the fly-by nights are going to be gone because it's just going to be enough of a barrier to entry to prevent a lot more people from coming in.
Well, and I think, listen, with all the stuff coming down with NAR and the commissions and everything else, I think that every real estate agent should listen to me right now and follow the path that I already put out, because I was an agent for a long time and transitioned over to wholesaling, and it is night and day. It's night and day. It's so much better. So, yeah, there's a bunch of people that are unlicensed that probably should get licensed. And eventually will have to get licensed. But all those real estate agents out there that have hopes and dreams and they want to have this lifestyle and they want to be able to be a real estate entrepreneur, they need to take a hard look at wholesaling and see the opportunity that's in front of them, especially in those states that are putting these type of regulations down. Because I'm telling you, I have really good friends that live in Illinois that have real estate licenses, and they switched over to wholesaling when that opportunity came, and they have 10x'd their income. So, like, listen, there is opportunity everywhere. And I'm just saying, like, if you're a real estate agent and you're in one of these areas, you need to take a hard look.
Let's be clear here. I want, if you could type this in the chat, it would be helpful. But I just want to list out the states that, because people keep asking, let's just make it easy for you guys. It's Illinois, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Arizona, Kentucky, Virginia, South Carolina, Connecticut, Wisconsin, Arkansas, Indiana, the city of Philadelphia, and the city of Atlanta, Oregon, and Iowa. That's a lot of places.
Now, some of those, just disclaimer real quick, some of those have not passed and enacted. So just to kind of clear,
Jerry, but it's going to. And if you're in those areas, you absolutely need to.
Yeah.
And you can tell Jerry is very scared. He's in a shipping container right now on his way somewhere. Obviously, he's sitting in there in a shipping container, very scared about this. I think it's a huge opportunity.
Yes.
Can you believe he's wearing that face?
I can believe it. Hey, let me show you something kind of cool. This is while we were on the topic of something fun. Check this out. My graphic team just sent this over for Community Camp.
Hey,
look at the big old lizard. We got Jamil up there getting sucked up by an alien. We got the lizard in the front. I was thinking that Jerry should come up with a brokerage called Lizard Listings. What do you guys think?
There you go. Perfect. Real professional.
Jerry, what's the opposition to you? Let's just say hypothetically, one of the foremost leaders of wholesale of all time. I mean, you're one of the OGs. You're probably the number one thought leader in wholesale in terms of the regulations and all this kind of stuff. Not probably, you are 100% the guy. What's your opposition to starting your own brokerage that we all join?
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a need that we have. I just, what we'd have to do, here's what we'd have to do. We'd have to get a sponsoring broker in every single state. Yep. And then that's all it would take. And then we could figure it out.
We have brokers in all of our communities. I'm sure that we could figure it out.
Yep. And then we would create an umbrella and just figure out a way to bring on and service wholesalers. And, I think there's a real need for that. I think that's a really great.
Is there a way to make money from that though? Because that's the thing is like, you'll have to have support team and employees and an office and
E&O insurance and all the things.
Yeah. You have to have E&O insurance and stuff. I mean, you have to have, so that's the thing everyone's reluctant to. Like, once we go down the licensing road, you are going to pick up fees. You got to pay for continuing education. You're going to pay your broker. Your broker, no matter what's going to charge you, make you pay for errors and emissions insurance. Somehow they're going to want, if a broker brings you on, they want compensated because you're underneath them. They have a liability now by having you in their brokerage. So now what's happening is,
especially all these brokerages that are paying out these penalties for that separate situation, because they're responsible for the agents that took those commissions, and the agents aren't getting fined. It's the brokerages getting fined.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's going to take some fees, and I don't know, Pace, what that model might look like, because no one wants to pay fees to their broker and then their broker is not really doing a service for them. That's the problem here is a wholesaler doesn't need a broker to help them wholesale. So what's the service the broker's bringing the agent? So, you know, like, it's just, how's that all work? I don't really know, but I know there's an opportunity, because if a wholesaler has to get a license, which that's where they're going, and they're going to close the loopholes. That's the other thing I want to tell everybody is, just because Nebraska says you can't market a contract, okay, great. Well, that's not a big deal. I can get around that. Well, that's today. Tomorrow they're going to pass this and that and this. Like, where do they stop? They're not going to stop until every single wholesaler has a license, I think, is where they're going. I think is what they want. So, or even not even allowed. Like, we might even get to that point where it's just like, I mean, that's South Carolina. South Carolina says, if you read South Carolina, it was aggressive language. Here's what South Carolina said. A real estate brokerage firm and its sub-agents are prohibited from engaging in, representing others in, or assisting others in the practice of wholesaling. Prohibited from engaging in wholesaling. That's the way the law is written in South Carolina. So they're saying, we do not want our licensed agents wholesaling at all, any part of it. We don't want them any part of wholesaling. Like, that's their stance in South Carolina. So where does this end, guys? So, like, I don't want to sit by and see wholesaling get steamrolled into oblivion. I mean, if it is, fine. Like, I'm not the Titanic and going down with it, right? So, like, I'll adjust. I'll be fine. And you guys will too, because you guys are innovators and you adapt quickly to the market. But it would be sad to see it go down like the Titanic and just sit by and watch.
I mean, the biggest thing that I see that will get amplified is, you know, there's a lot of the Gator community in here that are like, hey, I'll do more double closes, or forget about double close, because double close could be argued as equitable interest, right? But like you said, if you just get transactional lenders that come in for a week, right? They come in, they close the deal for a week, give you the ability to market the deal for a week. Now you resell the deal. You know, you've got some closing costs and whatever else. But if you're Brent Daniels and your average assignment fee is $27,312, what do you give a crap if it costs you $5,000 to essentially do a long double close, where you could argue that's not a double close, right?
To add to that, if I may, the transactional funders typically want to see your contract sold before they will actually fund the A to B. So what transactional funder is going to go out on a limb and close your deal? Especially if that's the thing. You gotta learn to.
But I understand. I'll look at a deal and I go, if you can't sell that deal, I'll sell that deal because I see it as a deal. But most transactional lenders won't be able to do that. You're right, 100%.
So here's what I did to start kind of preempting all of this. I went to my lenders and I said, hey, what would it look like to have a program where I turn the money every 30 to 60 days? I need 30 to 60 days, realistically 60 days. And so if I'm paying 12%, 2 points every 6 months, which is a rehab loan, typical rehab loan is 2 points every 6 months. Well, that's 4 points annually. Well, hey, what if I give you 1 point per turn and I turn the same money 6 times now instead of twice every 60 days? Well, that means now they're getting 12% interest and 12 points. Well, it'd be 6 points if it's one point per turn. That's more money than a rehab loan, right? And now I'm only paying 1 point. So now I'm doing the math. Like we just did a deal where I did a split test and I said, what can I wholesale this for? It's in Florida. What can I wholesale this for? And what can I sell it for if I bought it, trashed it out, cleaned it, took pictures and put it on the MLS and got the highest paying buyer in the market? And so we investor lifted it. We worked it really hard. We outbounded it. And it was a 60,000 contract to a 72,000 assignment. I did not take the assignment, took it down, closed on it.
Yep.
Got 98 on the open market on the MLS, 98. So I ran my numbers. Okay, I pay interest, I pay points, I pay closing fees twice. And I'm sitting in the deal now for, it's not like an assignment where I'm not in the deal at all. I'm in the deal now. And after paying all the fees, I doubled. I made about 25 instead of 12. So if I can take down deals and resell and be in them 60 days, now I got to have capital. So this only works if you're capitalized. But if I can double what I'd make doing assignments, doing wholetailing, that's wholetailing, right? Then why is that not a better model anyway? And it gets everybody off my back.
I mean, I think a lot of wholesalers tend to go that way after a year or 2 years anyway, right? They start cherry picking the best deals. I mean, that's what all four of us do.
Yeah.
And
if I can close on it, I'll close on it every time because I know I can sell it for more.
Yeah, I mean, Brent's been closing. Brent, you've been closing on like most of your deals, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's just, one, I want to establish the relationships with the lenders in town and get them paid so that, when things like this come up, you've got unlimited funds to be able to purchase.
Well, think about this too.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't think that getting being unable to sell equitable interest is going away anytime soon. I think that that's a far, far road. I think they can go, hey, you got to get your real estate license so that you're accountable here to the public. And that's going to sit for a long time that you have to get licensed. For them to go, hey, listen, you can't assign your contract, assign something that's I don't know. I think that's really far away.
But look at South Carolina. South Carolina, the way the law is written right now, which passed the Senate on the 4th of March. So it was introduced, passed the Senate. It's got one more. If it goes through the House, that baby's law. And that says you have to get a license to wholesale. And once you're licensed, we do not want you wholesaling. That will be the law.
Yeah, but somebody can fight that.
Well, South Carolina will be the most regulated, or basically they'll have banned wholesaling based off of what that bill is. So it'll be banned in South Carolina. You will actually have to buy, close, hold, and then market and sell. That's it.
You just have to adjust.
You're going to need to know what a good deal is.
The big time buyers in that area are going to clean house, bro.
Yeah. Big time.
Oh my God.
You got to stop. You got to stop with these Hail Mary contracts and locking up crap for too high and not knowing what you're doing, thinking that some sucker's going to come take your deal. Learn how to comp.
Yeah. And think about the confidence when you sit down with a seller and you say, look, I'm actually the buyer and I'm the real buyer, and I'll put earnest money down and I'll show you proof of funds. Like
that's how I called it the scorch earth method. I beat everybody when I'm in person. If you go in person, Jerry made a great video about this actually today, talking about how he's going back to the model of going in person. His partners are boots on the ground. Nobody could beat me. Nobody could beat me. If you can build a relationship with your seller in person, in their living room, and you can tell them I'm the actual buyer, I'm going hard earnest money. This is my inspection, all that kind of
contingencies.
Yeah, and I remember one time I was competing against Cody Sperber's acquisition team, and I told the lady, I go, hey, look, even if I don't buy the deal, let me just give you some advice. Do you mind if I just look at the contract? And I went through and I circled. I was like, you see how they have $1 EMD? That's not good. Okay, you see this, you see this, you see this, and she's like, oh my gosh. So you go in person and you combat all of that stuff. It's actually better, guys. I feel like the thing that like Joe Homebuyer or Homevestors had really, really well put into my brain is going in person on the appointment in person. Brent, is your team going in person to your appointments?
Always.
Yeah. You'll buy 30% deeper and you'll cut out 90% of your competition.
Well, they tell you stuff at the kitchen table they would never tell you on the phone.
And it's also, you have to build relationships with these property owners. You know what I mean? If you take it too transactional, if you're too much like Open Door or OfferPad or whatever else, where it's literally like they just send you the contract and then they bring in inspect, there's no like personality to it at all. A lot of those deals fall out, especially wholesale deals. A lot of them, the sellers just back out and they don't know what's going on. They don't like the person they talk to. They don't know how to get a hold of the person they talk to. They feel icky about it. And then, they cancel or want to cancel. And then there's people that slap memorandums on them and it's a whole mess. It's an absolute mess.
That's another thing. The memorandums. I mean, we got to be careful about that too. I've kind of taken a different tune with that one. There's 17 states that have made it illegal. They call them non-title recorded agreements for personal services, NTRAPs. And they characterize these as liens, covenants, encumbrances, or security interests. And what's happening is wholesalers are putting these memorandums on properties. The deal falls out. They leave them on there. A year later, 2 years later, seller tries to sell, and then the wholesaler holds them hostage for money, right? To let go of that memorandum. And so this is a hot button. That's a hot button right now in the industry. Like, if you put a memorandum on there, lift that thing off. Do not hold that seller hostage with that memorandum. Just don't. It's not going to come out well for you.
No, and it's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
If they don't want to sell to you, they don't want to sell to you.
That's right. If the seller wants out of the contract, let them out of the contract. Don't force them to. Don't try to force it. Like, what are you doing? You're there to help that person, even if they change their mind. Now, I get it that you get backdoored. That's not cool. You know, there's situations where it merits, but you got to be really careful with those memorandums. And I can list out those states as well, because Indiana passed that as well. So it's Alabama, California, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Iowa, Maryland, Maine, Nevada, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Tennessee, Washington, and now Indiana. And that's the most recent list I could find as of March with these no recording security interest things.
Can I address something real quick on with Cat Crane? We've had a bunch of people in the comments talk about the creative finance stuff. Guys, this does actually affect creative finance as well from the wholesale side of things, right? Now, I'm primarily a buyer for sub-2 and seller finance deals, but if you're assigning a sub-2 deal, assigning a seller finance deal, assigning a lease option, assigning an executory contract, if you are assigning any interest in a property whatsoever, it does regulate those things. And so it's the same conversation. If you want to now do a sub-2 deal, you should be doing a subtail. So buying it subject to, closing on it, taking it retail. You're going to make way more money that way anyway, right? If there's equity in the deal, right? Then the other way is close on a sub-2 deal and then resell the deal. You can do the same exact thing. The great thing about creative finance is now I don't need transactional funding for a sub-2 deal. I can just close the sub-2 transaction, and then a week later I can resell it to my buyer. They are also taking over that sub-2 loan. So there's no need for transactional funding.
Except unless there's an entry fee, right?
Unless there's an entry fee or a down payment or those types of things. And in that situation, there's no lender that's an institutional lender that will do that. You'll have to go to a gator that will do like a gator 3.0, we call it, where they're bringing private money to the table to cover that cost for a week. I just did this for a lady in California. She said, hey, I'm buying a sub-2 deal. The cost to get into the deal is $42,000. And I want to close on it and go get my own private money lender. I'm like, no problem. I'll cover your deal. You pay me $10,000. And in 10 days, she'll have a new lender in place, right? She already has the lender lined up. I've already spoken to her lender. It's a private person that's a friend of hers, but she can't move money from her self-directed IRA fast enough. So I'm like, oh, I'll close. I'll lend that money to you. You replenish me when your new lender comes in. So it's a smaller amount of money, but it's a different type of lender that's willing to go in second position, right? So it does affect creative finance for sure if you are choosing to assign the deals. The advantage creative finance has is that you're not having to go and borrow 300 grand or 400 grand to close on the deal, and which means there's a lot less fees involved, right? So, but it does mess with it. And same thing with like lease options, people that do sandwich lease options, which is, nothing we need to get into today. But if I'm acquiring on a lease option and then I'm reselling on a lease option, that is also, that's interesting. I wonder if you can do that because a lease option is equitable interest.
Yeah.
We should get an attorney on here from one of these states and like actually have Jerry. What about the sponsor of one of these bills? Can I have my team reach out to one of them? Is there any way?
If they'll talk to us, sure. Yeah. Or the other thing that I've been trying to do is when I go on these, the local realtor associations, like the Oregon Realtor Association, when I went on their website trying to get more information, because they actually marketed for support of that bill. And they have an attorney, they have like a legal section, a tab for legal. And then this attorney puts out all this YouTube content, all about agent stuff, all legal stuff for agents. And I was like, okay, great. This guy's obviously their go-to for legal. He's a lawyer. He's putting out content for Oregon. Let's talk to this guy about what they're doing here. He's got to have some insights on this. And so, but I never heard back from him, So, but yeah, I agree. Like that would be a great thing to do is maybe get inside some of their heads here on this.
So some of these attorneys that are involved in creating this, though, will have they won't be able to talk to us because they've got attorney-client privilege with the people that they're engaged with right now. Yeah. So we might just need to find attorneys on our own in those states and engage them ourselves, give them a retainer, and have them come and have a conversation with us.
Hey guys, everybody that has a question about creative finance and how this is going to change the industry, come on my podcast right after this. I do Get Creative every Monday night. We will talk only creative finance on there. We don't need to like muddy the whole conversation around creative finance. So we've got like Justin Glatz talking about loan sponsorships, which is a creative way of getting deals done in Gator. Guys, come into Get Creative on my YouTube channel at 7:00, which is in an hour. And we'll talk all about this stuff just regarding creative finance.
But I think, Pace, you bring up a really good point, though, which is just like I never want to be a one-trick pony. And I feel like a lot of wholesalers, they get in the industry, they learn the assignment of contract. And like that's their whole playbook is assignment of contract. And guys, you want to be a transaction engineer. You don't want to be an assignment or whatever that would be called, right? Like that's just one way to do a deal. It's the least barrier to entry. So it's a great place to start. But if your entire business model in 2024 as a wholesaler revolves around the assignment, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble because you can only do low cash offer with a big spread, high equity in the deal, super desperate situation, right? And so you're limiting yourself to a very small segment of the seller market. Whereas if you can do other strategies like taking it down, novation, creative, none of it means you have to hold, flipping, wholesaling. Like you just want to start to learn how to do deals in multiple ways of transacting.
I mean, one of those ways as well is also having an agent that you refer deals to, like Jamil with Monique Walker, right? He probably makes $1 million a year from an agent that refers deals to him. She gets paid assignment fees, all that kind of stuff, but also his team refers listings back to her, which is great. So why not? Again, I'm going to ask the question again. Why not start Lizard Listings nationwide brokerage where people can get licensed as an agent and primarily be licensed investors? 90% of what they do, they're investors, but one of those little golf clubs in their bag or their tool in their tool belt is actually listing a property when it's appropriate to do so. What are your thoughts on that?
Pace, I'm trying to do less work, not more work. I want to go out on the boat here in Montana with you and not do any work.
I know Jerry and I were texting the other day. He's like, I'm going to take 3 months off. And I'm like, me too.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But I think you're in the right direction there.
Or you could have an agent on your team, kind of the way Jamil has it set up, where you just refer those listings out. Because for example, right, a lot of my community focuses on expired listings right now because there's so many expired listings and they're gobbling up subto and seller finance deals. You guys want to know how many transactions our community did last year? Just in our Discord was over $4 billion in creative finance transactions just went through our Discord channel.
Crazy.
That was only what was tracked in Discord. So you think about that. I mean, this is all off market stuff nationwide. A lot of that's expired listings. And so what's happening is they're calling expired listings. They're going direct to seller. They'll run into a seller who says, no, I'm going to list it with another agent. Okay, well, obviously you didn't like the agent you went with before. Can I refer you to one of my agents? Jamil, is there a way you can get paid on kicking a deal back to an agent?
Not unless you're licensed.
Okay, so
agent can't pay you. Yeah, agent pays us because my team's all licensed, but they can't pay you if you're unlicensed. You can't receive a commission or any type of a referral agreement from a licensed real estate agent without being a licensed real estate agent. That's an illegal kickback.
But Pace, to that point, I mean, in most of my markets that I concentrate in, we get a license and we list a lot. We list for 3%. And sometimes a $400,000 listing is almost the same as an assignment on a wholesale at 3%, 3.5%. So like, I feel like there's so many ways to monetize a license. I've never not made a ton of money having a real estate license. And I'm talking outside of wholesaling. You can list your own stuff. You can set up your own showings. You can get referral fees. Like for the minimal, a few $1,000s to maintain a license, why would you not just have a license on your team? And however the law says it, but have a license.
Do you think I would learn a lot of things in license class, Brent?
You'll learn how big an acre is.
Yeah,
I remember. I remember when property taxes are due.
I did, Pace.
Oh, no more money. October, November, March, and May.
What did you learn in real estate school?
I felt like it helped me a lot understand.
I remember
just real estate law in general. You know how title worked, and I mean, a lot of it wasn't relevant to investing, but I felt like it made me a smarter, better, more intelligent, more educated real estate person.
Interesting. Okay, so Jerry, again, what's the opposition to you starting a brokerage and we all just team up with it? Why not?
I mean, that might be the move, Jerry. We'll talk about it off.
We did have a brokerage at one point, and Pace, the amount of brain damage that having a brokerage is, it's just, and it's not profitable, right? It's a loss leader. You are putting on a lot of liability on your shoulders, and the documentation and the upkeep is in insane amounts of brain damage,
which is probably why no one's tried to do it.
Yeah.
Well, the move is you build it up, you get a ton of licensees under your umbrella, and then you sell it to one of the big guys. That's the move of independent boutique brokerages. That's the business model. Yeah. Is you essentially run off of thin margins so you get to the point where it's in a bigger one, and then they take it over. I don't know why, but they like that.
Hey, anyway. by the way, guys, I just want to say thank you to everybody. We've got 750 people watching between a couple of channels. Thank you guys so much for coming today. Really appreciate you guys. Give it up in the side chat. Tell everybody where you're at. Squat up with each other. Yes, we are live. Sometimes we'll get messages like, is this live? Yes, it's live. It's 750 people hanging out with us tonight talking about this. And I can tell you, Jerry puts in countless amounts of hours to condense this information for all of us. And it's so cool to have him as one of the amigos on the Wholesale Hotline crew. Freaking love this guy so freaking much. So Jerry, you were also talking about a wholesale coalition of sorts.
Yeah.
What would be different between a brokerage and like an association? What would be the difference?
Well, the idea there is it's a nonprofit, right? It's a trade organization. And I would love, and we've got, by the way, since we came up with this idea, we rolled out a website, we set up the nonprofit. We haven't done much since, but we've got thousands of people that have signed up through your guys' effort too, that joined like a waiting list. I know we have enough support probably. I think what we need to do now is we just need to, I don't know, maybe we all throw in some money, we get some staff that can run with some things, but it'd be nice if we could come up with some our own code of ethics. At some point, it'd be great if we could collect some dues, get a lawyer that could go challenge some of this stuff. Maybe we could do some lobbying. Maybe we could ask for these regulators to invite us into the discussion when they're ready to do some of this stuff so we can help them do it maybe better or more appropriately. I just feel like if we had a unified body, we could defend ourselves better, stand up against some of this, do some lobbying, maybe even take on something and go against it. Like, let's challenge this law and call it unconstitutional, see if we can get it reversed, things like that.
Can I be honest with you on that? I can tell you that unless we had a tremendous amount of support from our audience, our communities, etc., I would rather spend my time on your lake in Montana during the summer than do any of that. So it's like, how many people do you have to have involved that justifies everybody spending the time and energy to do this?
Yeah. And that's why it's been so hard to get off the ground, because I don't have the time and energy to personally do it. I feel like it needs done. So yeah, I mean, that's just been the challenge. And I know you guys are busy too. So, but it's definitely something that we need to consider or figure it out, because we need to have a unified voice and we need to stand up against this.
Let's say I got licensed in Arizona, Jamil.
Yes, sir.
Does my purchase agreement have to state that I intend to assign the contract if I'm a licensed agent?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. A license doesn't absolve you of the disclosure. Any wholesaling. So whether that is via double close, whether that is through transactional funding, whether that is using an assignment, if you intend to market the contract prior to closing, so if at any point you market equitable interest, you have to have disclosed that on the original A to B contract. So any marketing of the contract requires the disclosure. We've been using a disclosure for the last 2 years. We have never had a problem with it. We've never had a seller kick it back. I know it by heart. Buyer is an LLC in the state of Arizona in the business of buying and selling real estate for a profit. buyer may fix and flip, hold for rent, and or wholesale equitable interest at buyer's sole discretion. That's the entire disclosure statement. We slam it on every single contract. It's in bold. It hasn't been kicked back to us. I've never had a seller say, "What's that?" Ever.
What if the seller says, nobody explained to me what that meant? Is there a law that states you have to explain it to the seller, walk through the contract with them? Anything like that? Any regulation?
It just needs to be disclosed. Yeah. There's nothing that says that there has to be another document that says that I fully understand what this disclosure statement means. I think that they would assume that if somebody's entering into the contract that they understand the words of the contract. And again, at the end of the day, how many times do people sign things they don't read?
Yeah.
And does the court ever absolve you?
Every time I've done anything in my life, that's me.
Does the court ever absolve you of that responsibility? No. They will not absolve you of that responsibility. The court says, "Hey, you know English. This contract was in English. You are of sound mind. You weren't coerced. You weren't under the influence of drugs or alcohol when signing. You are liable. You are a party."
But that's Arizona. So Iowa actually said, here's the list of things that the disclosure has to have. Legal entities, explanation of wholesaling, that you only hold an equitable interest, that you may not be able to convey title. Like they list out those things. So as long as you're following what the definition of disclosure is in your state that passed it, just make sure you understand that. Like Arizona it didn't really say much. It just said they need to know that you have equitable interest. So, like what Jamil just said it in a sentence in his contract. So easy. But Iowa, you're going to have to kind of list out all those things in your disclosure.
Hey, Jerry, would you read a question from your #1 fan on the screen, please?
Jerry, to have a unified front, would we also have to hold our members accountable, regulate them, do checks, have brokers reviewing their transactions? Are you talking your team members?
Let's say that you start Lizard Listings, we all come underneath you as, agents underneath your brokerage.
Yep.
That's
everything's reviewed.
Yeah. So remember, when you're an agent, you're just a representative of your broker. So your broker is ultimately responsible for everything you do. And that's why the correct thing a broker should be doing, now they don't all do this, is they should be reviewing everything you do, every contract you do, every listing agreement you do, because if crap hits the fan and you do something wrong, it's the broker who's responsible. So it is, like Jamil said, it's tremendous liability to be a broker. And now you got wholesalers doing who knows what, you know what I mean? Like it better pay well.
Yeah.
Delta Properties, thank you so much for $100. I don't know where that $100 goes. But we're gonna make sure we send it over to Jerry to afford more diapers for his household.
I want to make one more point of protection for wholesalers, especially just starting out, guys. I had a conversation with a telecommunications attorney today. There is an avalanche of TCPA complaints hitting our industry specifically. An avalanche. I've been saying for 8 years, scrub against the do not call list. Guys, I am telling you, I get it. You're starting out. If they sue you, what does it matter? You can just close your company and go off and do something else. It is a nightmare. Don't deal with it. Scrub against the do not call list and the litigators list. There are professional litigators that if you call them, even if they're not on the DNC list, they will sue you. They will sue you. Because that's what they do. Because they know you will settle. They know that you will settle for $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. Guys, scrub against the DNC, the do not call list. Even the expired listings will tell you if they're on the do not call list. If they are, mail them. Knock on their door. Find some other way to get in contact with them. Okay, guys? Because I'm telling you, as soon as the attorney, and it's not even the public that really gets it. It's the attorneys. Once the attorneys smell that they can get easy, simple paydays, watch all the suits.
Hear what
watch what's going to happen.
That one attorney did where they went, or was it Pace who brought it up, that they went and traced back the entire
100%.
transaction to find out if that disclosure was there. So all they've got, all these, look, if you're a lawyer, I shouldn't even say this. I'm not even going to say it because I'm going to give these idiots an entire business model. So fuck you, lawyers.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, guys, listen, there are so many different wonderful opportunities to reach out to property owners and fill your day being proactive, calling real estate agents. Those are commercial numbers. Those aren't on the DNC, right?
Yep.
Reaching out to people that haven't registered on the DNC, people that haven't been in litigations. There's plenty of ways to go out and find really great opportunities. But I'm telling you guys, this whole, well, it's a gray area. We're offering to buy it. There's states right now that are saying that's bullshit. You're making a fee income off of these deals. And that means that you're calling as a solicitor. Now, some states are literally calling us solicitors.
Yeah.
And that's for a reason. They're trying to put that label on you so it's easier to litigate. So I'm just telling you guys, like, be really smart out there. I want you to be proactive. I want you to take massive and perfect action. There's plenty of people to reach out to that have not registered on the do not call list. All right. But I've been saying this forever. Nobody listens to me. Everybody wants to run rogue. Everybody doesn't care. They just want to get after the properties that they want to get after. But I'm telling you, you're going to pay the dumb tax. You're going to pay the stupid tax. And it's going to,
Hey,
yeah.
my wife wants to come and say hi to everybody.
There she is. How's the baby?
Hello, beautiful.
Hi. I want to see Jeremy. Hi, Jeremy.
bet.
Hi, Laura.
Hi.
Dude, that fire was crazy.
Say hi to Jamil. Look at Jamil.
Hi.
Hey, Jamil. Hi,
Hi,
Jeremy.
guys.
Hi,
Mwah, mwah.
Okay,
Hi, Corbin.
bye. Come on,
I love your hair, Corbin.
Thank
Bye,
you.
love.
And Monday.
Hi, Monday.
Say hi. Blow them a kiss. Blow them a kiss.
Boom.
I'll see you in a little bit, okay?
Bye, Phil. Bye, Monday. Bye, Laura.
Okay, I'm coming with you.
Anyway, awesome. Guys, this is the best business ever. Being a real estate entrepreneur, making a living in real estate is the best business, in my opinion, ever. Just do it right and do it smart and think long-term about the actions that you take, and make sure that you're listening to us. Make sure that you're subscribed to each and every one of our YouTube channels. We all have different perspectives, different techniques, different things to teach you. It's not all just overlap with each and every one of us. They're all unique, and we have unique experiences to share with you. So make sure that you're subscribed to Jerry's, to Jamil's, to Pace, to myself. Make sure that you're getting the information that you need. Nobody else is coming out and saying this stuff. Nobody else is doing a whole report to protect you. Nobody else is giving you frontline information on exactly how to do this right, because you can make a fortune and you can get out of whatever financial rat race that you are through real estate. And we want to be able to give you that path, but just follow what we're telling you. I mean, we know we've seen it. We've been around in this thing for 20 plus years.
Yep.
And we want to allow you to tap into that experience so that you guys can go and sleep at night doing this business.
And don't get discouraged. You know, like this might feel discouraging when you see these things happen, and like all the stuff you were just talking about, Brent, with the texting and all that. Like, don't get discouraged. This is just every day. You know, you're only as big as the problems in front of you. So if a level 3 problem swamps you, then you got to grow yourself up past that. You know, like keep developing into a stronger, better person. Don't let these things stop you from doing the business. Don't leave the industry because now there's regulation. Innovate, right? Find solutions. Be the solution. Be the one that stands up and does things better. And be excited about it. I'm excited for our industry. I'm excited for where we can go with this. I'm excited for real estate. I mean, you know, I want to make more money, do more good, have more impact. And we can do that. Every single one of you watching this can do that.
Pace, you're muted. What do you got?
Sorry, that's me. So I like this comment from Mark a lot. He says, all these scary laws are not really scary. And regulations, they help weed out the immoral people in the industry.
Yes, sir.
Anyway. And it makes it, guys, if there's one extra layer of friction to making a bunch of money, it makes it easier for the consistent people that show up every day. They don't actually have any competition whatsoever. So this is all great, positive, amazing stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So my question is more for Jerry. You have a deal finder program that it's probably the best deal finder program out of all the ones that I've tried before.
Oh, thank you.
And so basically the question is, how are you gonna maneuver the deal finder program around the laws that are coming out in each state? Because I know the deal finder program is nationwide.
Nationwide, yeah. I mean, my team and I are dealing with that right now. We're like, okay, well, how? Yeah, we're trying to find solutions to that because I don't want to be limited on where we can do stuff. I want to be able to cross state lines, just like everybody wants to. To me, if it fits what I'm looking for in the criteria for a deal, then I want to be able to do that deal. But it is gonna mean that everybody in those prospective markets is going to have to make sure that they're operating effectively. I've done it lots of different ways. The way I originally started the finder program was we had one entity, everybody offered under that entity, and then I had a basically an independent contractor agreement with each finder. Mm-hmm. And that was great until some guys would go out and they would completely trash the brand of the entity because they would go make 50 full price offers on everything for sale and none of them were deals. And then they'd be backing out of the contracts. And then, agents were like, hey, we don't want to work with that company anymore because they don't. So it didn't work because of that. Right.
So would it not just be easier to implement like a review team before somebody puts something under contract? So here's an example. When I send my deals to Keegley, before I even send it to Keegley, I know that it's going to sell because I'll send it before I get it under contract to Keegley. I'll send it to them. They'll review it. Shout out to Andy. He'll review it and actually let me know that this is a deal that's going to sell. So it's basically like a guarantee. Once I get the contract and I send it to Keegley, they'll close on it. So the only part of that will be eliminated is the part where I get the contract under me because I'm a wholesaler and I'm not allowed to sell to market my equitable interest. So in that scenario, I would just send the deal to Keegley. They'll write up the contract under Keegley and then sell it, and then I'd get paid however the agreement is between
behind the scenes. Yeah, I mean, maybe I explore some of those. That seems challenging at scale, but maybe I'll talk to Jamil and see how they do that because
it's only in some markets, like in the ones of where we can control here's the rub, right? Because that would be incredible if we could get all of our franchises to be really robust with comping. But again, not all of them are as experienced as others. And so you come in, and if people are being sloppy with the numbers and they're not making sure that they're really putting into action how to value these things, it's just like it did for you, Jerry. It tarnishes the brand, and no one's going to close on that, right? Nobody's going to close on something that's not a deal. How many times did you get pitched a bad deal, Jerry, and the guy that's pitching you the bad deal, and they won't stop?
No,
they won't stop. It's like, okay, the next, and then the next, and the next. But it's like, bro, do homework instead of just go figure it out. Go learn what these things are worth before you start doing this stuff. Stop wasting everybody's time with stuff that's an absolute trash deal, and learn to see what actual potential is.
So
it's been on market for 200 days and you got it under contract for full price. What makes you think that's a deal that I'm going to buy and pay you money for? I mean, underwriting deals without a contract is a very challenging idea for what Jamil just said. I'll have somebody submit me 50 properties that they just found and say, hey, underwrite these for me.
Yeah.
Well, you underwrite them and then you find the good ones. If there's a way to do that, then I think I'd be open to exploring that. I just don't want to become somebody's underwriting department because they don't want to figure out how to underwrite.
But the thing is, well, I personally see this as a good thing because when I was starting out wholesaling, I think I made money getting away with some crappy underwriting, but I still made money from it because somebody was gonna buy it even if technically was not a good deal. Maybe they didn't even underwrite it themselves. They just bought it just to buy it, and I made money off of it. But I think with all these regulations coming in place, it's gonna force people to get better at comping, like, because otherwise you would not make money at all.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, in my Finder program, a lot of the people that participate in that, they do on market because they're newer investors and it's first deal typically, and on market has all the no marketing benefits. So there's already agent representation on that property. So, but I see where you're going with that, and it's a concern I have is how do we cross state lines now and do so effectively?
Yeah, Jamil, straight up, thank you so much for changing my life in my first year of wholesaling. My first 100 deals I wholesaled through Jamil, and I never once had to comp a single property. I did not learn how to comp a property for a year. I just was like, I'm going to practice going into the appointment, getting into the living room, building rapport. That's my one skill and my merit badge. I want to earn the merit badge of in-person appointments. I want to be the best of the best of the best at it. And I focused on that. And because of Jamil, I was able to focus and fine tune that. And he's wholesaled 100 deals for me my first year. And it freed up my time and my energy, and it gave me the confidence to know this deal's going to sell. So, what Jasper is saying, Jasper, same thing. His first deal was he made $9,100 on his first deal a couple of years ago, and he JV'd with somebody else who was further ahead of him, right? And so I think a lot more JVing should be going on. I see a lot of wholesalers, same thing here. Matt Beard, his first deal was JVing with me, right? His first wholesale deal was a JV with me. Guys, a lot more JVs need to go on in this industry. People need to be collaborating with other people. They will fill in the gaps of your understanding if you're willing to let them make some money along the way.
And if you guys are still having trouble with comping your properties, Madge, it's coming back, bro. Straight Outta Comping's coming back this Wednesday at 1 o'clock. It's going to actually happen twice a week now. I'm doing them Wednesdays at 1, Sundays at 4, twice a week. Straight Outta Comping coming back. Stop. And I'm only doing it because so many people just stopped learning how to comp. I stopped doing it. They stopped comping.
Where's it going to be?
On my YouTube channel.
Boom.
Wednesdays at 1, Sundays at 4. Twice a week. There's no excuse.
Jerry, I think next week's episode, we could talk entirely about the NAR regulations and what's going on there. How does that affect us? How does it affect agents? Maybe even bringing on a top agent. Maybe we bring on Monique Walker, Jamil. You think she'd be interested in coming on?
She would love to.
It'd be cool to have the four of us and talk about the regulations and have Monique Walker come on board, just because, she makes $1 million plus a year as an agent, and she understands the wholesale world incredibly well. She's one of Jamil's number one lead sources of deals. It would be awesome to be able to have her on the show and talk about how does this affect agents from an agent's perspective. And Jerry, who knows more about this topic than anybody I know.
Yeah, I recently... There's an analyst that's predicting a million agents out of the 1.5 total million, 1.5 million total agents. 1 million are expected to exit the industry.
We have 26 times more real estate agents per capita than the next country.
Yeah, not anymore. Yeah,
26 times.
Well,
do you know what the average commission is in Europe? 2%.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw this, but a recent study came out that half of all licensed real estate agents have done 0 or 1 transaction in the past year.
Right.
And the average income of a real estate agent is like
35,000 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
it's like 40,000 a year.
Their cost to stay an agent yearly is roughly $4,000 to $5,000 a year in dues and all the continued education and all the things they have to continue to pay for.
And now when you're not entitled to your buyer's agent commission, you got to go earn it. Goodbye. They're gonna all leave.
Welcome to wholesale, agents. Welcome to wholesale, baby.
We'll take you.
I've been telling agents, I said, stop calling yourself a real estate agent, start calling yourself a licensed investor, and start thinking as an investor for once in your freaking life.
Yeah,
that's it.
Should I? The final say here. Okay, final say here. Should I be worried about these regulations if I'm trying to get into wholesaling, Jerry Norton?
You just need to learn what they are, learn how to comply, learn how to do things the right way. Don't let it stop you. We were talking about this a minute ago. Like, don't let it slow you down. Don't let it stop you, and look at it as an opportunity, because now, like you said, when there's a little bit of friction and everybody goes away, to me, that's great. It's just less competition in the industry, more opportunity for me. Like, look at it that way, guys. Like, don't let this deter you. Just step up and do what you need to do to become better.
Love you guys. Great show. Great show. Thanks,
Wholesale
Jerry.
Hotline 211. Be back
Yeah.
next week.
Or just say squat up.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
1, 2, 3.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
What are you doing?